Hi, Glen. So last time I showed you this Linux Mint thing. Here's the virtual box of it, and this is in a program called Virt Manager. I showed you that this was an easy Linux for beginners to get into. Well, here's the fun part. Since then, Glenn, I know you and you know me, and I know you said to your neighbor, "Oh, hey, I just heard about this thing, Linux Mint, and Linux Mint was great, and you loved it, and all this stuff." And then your neighbor said, "Oh, that's cool," and then they told their cousin, and then their cousin told their roommate, and then the roommate told their little brother, and the little brother said, "Ah, that Glenn installing Linux Mint, ah, what a nonce! Linux Mint is easy. That's not a real operating system. That's the operating system for noobs." And then, the roommate and told the cousin who told the neighbor who then came up to you and then is leaning on the fence, pointing over, uh, noob, threw some tomatoes and all that stuff because that's what people do. That's how friendly Linux is in the community. So we're gonna do something a little. Oh, someone's coming home. Oh, hey Glenn, I'm back. Someone came home, so I had to pause the recording and all that stuff. You know how it is, people. Anyway, yeah, so this time, as you've seen in the screens that flashed by briefly, we're doing something fun. Ignore that Kali Linux Live there. I did do that Google cybersecurity course and all that stuff. But you'll see in this list we have Ubuntu Unity and Ubuntu 2404, which I've never used, and Mochaccino OS, which is a really interesting operating system from my perspective because it keeps the user applications separate in a different layer to the main system, and it's all based on Gentoo. So yeah, that's an interesting one. Then we have the Linux Mint that we installed last time. Ooh, and then we have this one. And if you notice the file sizes, it's the smallest of them all. That's right, it's Arch Linux. That's the Arch Linux built from the 1st of July. That seems like a long time for an Arch Linux build. But anyway, we're going to choose this volume, and it'll show up here as Arch Linux. We go forward, and we're going to say, you know what? We have enough RAM. Let's give it 4096 megs of RAM. And we're going to give it 2 CPUs because this is a quad core. So let's max that baby out. And then we're only going to need 20 gigs for the disk image. We got Arch Linux there, and this time we're going to customize things before they install. Why is that? Well, I don't want to use BIOS this time. I want to use UEFI. And then we're just going to begin the installation. Now, Arch Linux, as you may know, is very, very friendly. Just kidding. So, Arch Linux is one of the least friendly of the operating systems out there. So what we're going to do is we're going to send this background here to 7. I sent the wrong thing to 7. No, I just went to the wrong thing. Okay, here we go. And there we go here. And it's booting up into the Arch Linux. So then we're going to have the install here. Now, the reason I'm doing it in a virtual machine is so that I don't have to get rid of my own personal Nix OS. I don't have the second hard drive yet to do proper installs, and I don't have a video capture card that would be capable of recording the install. So when you first come in, you're going to be greeted with this terminal. Now, a lot of people consider terminal to be scary, but really, if you just type in Arch install, you're going to get an Arch installer eventually. Again, virtual machines are a little bit slower, and then you just go through each one of these fields, you fill them out the way that you want to, and then you install, right? But that might be how your neighbor's cousin's roommate's little brother did it, but you're not them. You're going to do things the right way. By the right way, I mean the long way. The long way is doing it manually. And that includes partitioning the disks with a wonderful little program called fdisk. And you can see in here, oh, right, I need to put it in the drive. And the drive is /dev/VDA. And I know that because I'm in a virtual machine and that's what they named the drive. So if we do this, we can see the commands. The first thing we want to do is create a partition table. I'm using G, which gives a GPT partition table. If you're using BIOS, you can use the MBR. But because we're using UEFI, I want to use GPT. So what do you need for partitions in a GPT? Well, that's really simple, Glenn. I'm glad you asked. Again, this whole thing is just so easy to do. Installing Arch Linux the Arch way. You need to have an EFI partition, which is going to be at /mount/boot in the installation. It's going to be in /boot in your actual install. And then you want to have, you know what? Sometimes I'll say use a couple of partitions. Have one for your root, and then have a second one for your home folder. That's how I set things up. But you know what? We're going to do this. It's one partition. We're not going to go with any type of encryption yet. Why? Because look, you're new to Linux. You just got bullied off of Linux Mint here. Okay? You got bullied off of Linux Mint and into Arch Linux. So I'm going to get you into Arch Linux in the easiest way that I know how, that also gets you into Arch Linux the right way. Because look, you can install Arch Linux through the installer, and it'll be nice and fast and easy. But you won't know a dang thing about your system. This way, you're going to know about your locale. You won't know what it does, but you're going to know about it, and you're going to know about your time zone. Oh, how about that? Okay, so now we need to put a new thing in, so we go N for new, and we're going to go partition number 1, which is our default. And then the first sector, you just want to have the default first sector. You want to have it at the beginning. 2048 is fine. And then we're going to specify the file size. So we're going to go with plus 1024M. I usually give 1 gigabyte for the A5 partition. That'll be that. And then we're going to go and we're going to create another partition, default 2, and start at the default location and at the default location, and now fill the whole thing up. Now we need to change the type of partition 1, and we want to select type UEFI for that. And then once that's done, we can write it using W, and then we can just go ahead and format that. So how do you do that? Well, there's a wonderful thing called MKFS, and then in this case you put a dot, and then you would select VFAT, I believe it is, /dev/VDA1. Boom. And then MKFS.ext4, which is your standard Linux file system type on your VDA2. That formats the 2 partitions, and then you can do fdisk-l/dev/VDA, and it prints your partitions there. Beautiful. Now we want to take this and we want to mount some things. So we want to mount /dev/VDA2, and you want to put that in /mount. You want to mount /dev/VDA1, and you want to give this the make-dir command, mkdir. And what that'll do is we'll make the directory that we're going for, which is mount/boot. And then from here, Glen, hope you're paying attention, we want to go into the mirror list on the actual Arch ISO, not in our install, because if you go to /mount, this is where our install is, and this is what we have. And you go to boot, that's what we have. So we want to go to etc and then pacman d and we want to edit that mirror list, nano mirror list. And the reason that we're doing this is to select a nearby mirror. And my personal favorite mirror, also one's coming home. Oh, hey, Glen. All right, third time's a charm. Uh, Gotta be a little bit quiet because it's in bed and all that stuff now. I just got back from a birthday dinner and, put the kids to bed and all that stuff. So anyhow, let's get this going. Oh, you'll notice I have the virtual machine paused. That's one of the wonderful things about a virtual machine. You can pause the whole machine all at once. In particular case, it wasn't necessary, but I did it anyway. Anyhow, I believe that I was in the process of putting in my favorite server. Server equals HTTPS for encryption mirrors dot cs log dot u waterloo ca slash arch linux slash sign refill slash os slash $sign arch. I do believe that's what it is. I use this particular editor sometimes called Nano. That's what you see here. And the reason is it's really easy to use. It's really easy to use because it has the key bindings at the bottom there. The control is to write it out, and control X is to exit. And then you can go in here and just Command SY. I'll sync the mirror. It didn't work. Alright. So that means that I typed it wrong. Let's try it again. Well, sometimes you win them, sometimes you lose them. Okay, mirror, not mirrors. Very important distinction. So, 4 is up to date, X is up to date. What is next? Well, next we have the fun part. Oh boy. We do a, excuse me, back strap K slash MNT, and then the base Linux match firmware. And what this will do is pull down base Linux and Windows firmware, and it will put it into that slash MNT folder, not the directory. Mm-hmm. Now you'll notice something here. This is wrong. So I'm going to cancel out of that. Control C. And I'm going to go down nano pacman.conf. Why are we doing that? Because there are two very important things to change in every Arch Linux install. First, you want parallel downloads equals 5, uncommented, so it can download 5 things at once. Makes it a little bit faster in downloading. And then the other thing you need is identity. And what that does, when you do that pack strap, you'll notice now you have multiple of them going across. Instead of being a bunch of pound signs, Pac-Man eating power pellets. This is here. This is at least half of the point of Arch Linux. Right here. What you're seeing with the Pac-Man. It's going a heck of a lot faster than I thought it would actually. I'm a little bit surprised. So once this is done, we're going to do an Arch change root, ch root. Some people call it chroot. And then we're going to go into the new environment and we're going to edit a few things in there. Um, it'd be all nice and fun. But we're not going to do that right away because we need to generate a file system tabular string, FS tab. And what that does is it tells your it tells your system where you need to put your partitions that you made right at the beginning of this whole process. So we're doing that now, and we do that. We do gen fs tab slash mnt, and we're not gonna put that output anywhere. Excuse me, almost sneezed. We're not gonna put that output anywhere first because we want to see what it gives us. You can see there as your VDA2 and VDA1. That's exactly what we want. Output that. Now that means right into the file. Oh, excuse me. That's right into the file. Append to the file. Slash mount slash etc slash s tab. 3, 2, 1, bam. Now if we concatenate slash mnt slash etc slash fs tab, you see it's there. Now we can merge dash sprout mnt, and now we're in the new environment. And the very first thing we need to do, okay, first thing we need to do is nano etc slash pacman. Why? You remember? We need to do this so that we can have a parallel downloads from I Love Candy. But nano doesn't exist. So the real first thing we need to do is get an editor. Now, when I was doing this the last time I did it, I noticed that there's no nano, there's no VI, there's no VIM, there's no NVIM, there's no ed, there's none of the editors that I might normally use. So, to install things, pacman-s, and then you do nano. And then you say, yeah, I want to get that. And it's installed. Now, nano, pacman.conf. Parallel downloads equals 5, take that out. And we'll just put in I Candy because Candy. Uh, Candy so much, I'm now diabetic. That's not a joke. Okay, so we want to get our zone info. Okay. We want to link dash sf slash usr zone info of share. Usr share zone info. And Eastern, because I'm in Eastern time zone. Now, Glen, you put in your time zone. And you want to put that to slash etc slash local time. Doing that, you want to set your hardware clock. Dash sys to HC. Sys to HC. Boom. Oh, 2 dashes. And we got that there. Now we want to nano slash etc slash locale.gem. And we want to search in here for underscore US. UTF. We get that line with the UTF-8, and comment it, save the file, and gem. And it's done. Now we move to nano etc slash cal.conf ring equals in underscore US UTF. Right the first time, probably put a 0. Now we have very basic installed system, but we don't have a few things. One of the things we need is a root password, pass wd, and we're going to set a very complicated password for this. Glen. Okay. Glen wasn't the password. I was just telling you Glen. Set a complicated password. Glen was the password. Okay, Pac-Man. S for sync. And we want to install some stuff. One of the things I like to put on my systems is Pipewire. And downloads and installs. Now I'm going to do that again. First time I'm going to do network. Oop. Network manager. Why? Because I like having internet. And also, network manager is just, a lot of people hate it. For a user's device, it's just the easiest thing to do. I've done APA supplement for doing your Wi-Fi and all that stuff manually. I did it programmatically in MixOS at one point. It was so nice. But this will work. It'll just work. And once you do that, of course, you want to do sys systemctl enable network manager. This time with capital N and capital M. Do that for you, and you're done. Now you want to. You're going to be logging. You're going to be logging in at this point. You won't have any graphical environment. You won't have user. So you want to have a user, and for that you want to be user. And you can call that user Glen. Now we're going to make a directory /home Glen. Home let me do it there. Glen clone users. Glen. Oops. Home /Glen. We're going to do a fun little thing where we have user mod add group AG and add wheel. There we go. And the reason we're adding wheel to Glen is so that we can Pac-Man sudo, not sudo, sudo. Super user do. Because there's this command called super user or switch user, and then su Glen, and boom, you go into Glen, and then if you sudo, it'll just, you know, by default do everything as root. It's not sudo, it's not sudo, it's sudo. And of course you need Pac-Man. You can do multiple things at once. I'm just doing this while I'm thinking of it. I need Vim so that we can use VI sudo. And we're just going to go down in this until we find, there it is, root. Insert mode, delete this. Insert mode is done with I. And then we just escape on WQ. There you go. It wrote the file. Hit the file. Done. Now everyone in the wheel group will be able to use sudo. They'll have to put in the password, but you know, do it. Now, for this next part, we're going to log in as the user Glen. the Glen. We're going to log in as the user Glen, and then we're going to use the user Glen to install a graphical environment. Um, at this point, you have Arch installed. And in fact, I might not even show you installing the graphical environment. I might just reboot it when you're done. Control D will get us out of our root environment, and then we just reboot. And then at this point, it will automatically boot into our startup thing. Oh, you know what happened? Oh, you know what happened, Glenn? I made one critical mistake. You know, I installed the operating system, but I didn't install the bootloader. Let's just pretend I did it on purpose. No. At this point, we're just going to force off. Yes, force it off. We're going to go here. You're going to do this right, so you don't have to do this. We're going to enable the boot menu. Let's do it. Do that the right way. We're going to edit this as well. Turn on the virtual machine. I'm going to get the... Right, I have to... it is late, so don't be afraid to make mistakes. In here, I'm going to add this ISO back in. When you make mistakes, there's basically always a way to recover from your mistake. And we want that one. We go back into the Arch Linux install media, and then we're going to remount our drives. It'll be lots of fun. You hear that, Glenn? It's called dead air. When it happens, people get this sense of dread, almost universal. You want to avoid that. So, mount /dev /VDA1 /MT /dev /VDA2. Whoops. New mount VBA2 /MT mount VBA1 MT/boot. And we want to arch root. And then we want to do root ETL install. Can you imagine? I forgot bootctl install. You can see that it went through fine. And then we're going to go to the Arch installation guide for this point. Because I always like to refer to exactly how to write these files, because we're going to need to have a file that tells the system where to go. And the default one actually works quite well. So we go into this, and then we can get to the bootloader section. And then for the bootloader section, we're going to use systemd boot. And you see here, bootctl install, we just did that. And then we need to have one of these handy little files here. Default is arch.conf. We go into boot, loader. You don't have to change directory in, I like to sometimes. Loader.conf. Default arch.conf. We're going to change the timeout. Why not? We're going to make that timeout 5. And then we'll entries. Arch.conf. And here we want title. Oh, there it is. Oh, I don't need the quotes. Oh, wonderful. Electronics. And then Linux is slash VM. And the RD slash program FS dash and then we have this annoying one. We have options root equals. Now we're going to write the file here, and then we're going to exit the file, and then we're going to cat slash etc slash s tab. We're going to append that into arch.conf. And we're going to nano arch.conf. You'll notice that our entire fs tab is in here. And what we want is this UUID right here. Oh, you know what, Glenn? I didn't specify to write the UUID into the actual FS tab file. That's okay, because I can fix it later. Alt F6 is a copy operation in Nano, and then Control U is paste. No, you shut up. Alright, now we don't need the rest of this file. So we'll just delete that with Control K, and then exit with Control X. And then we have our entry file written as per this specification, except we need to have it as read-write. And now we can exit our root, and we'll go and do that. And fs tab again, dash u this time, slash mnt. And we have the UIDs in the proper places there. So we're going to, once we can append that into slash mnt slash etc slash fs tab. And then we're going to nano slash mnt slash etc slash fs tab because we have two copies of everything, but we want to use the UUIDs. And the reason we want to use the UUIDs is just to make everything a little bit more precise. When you're switching around drives, that can change your partition layout, or if you decide to add another partition in or change the size of a partition or something like that, it can completely mess up your tab. If you have the UUIDs, you do any of that, unless you like resize the partition or change the partition in some way, the UUID is going to be the same into that particular partition. So if you add another drive, for instance, make sure that it's all going to the right place. Now, this time when we reboot, should give us your hit option. And instead of rebooting, we're going to shut down, which I do with power off command. And we're going to go back in here. I know boot options. I enabled that boot menu, but I don't want to. Here, starter up again. Let's make sure it works. We got our Arch Linux. That's the file that we wrote. And it says ARD. Never skip steps. Like, never skip steps. Always skip steps. Arch Linux, I'm telling you, is so easy to install. But the thing about installing this is very easy to go back and fix your issues. I'm just going to power that up again. Get running. And I'll show you exactly what I did wrong. Okay. So while that's loading up, I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to go back to our initial installation guide. And see where it says mkinit cpio-p. Yeah. Let me double check to see if there's anything else we forgot. Say we as though you had any point or part in this. No, I don't made mistakes. But here we go. Normally you want to have swap partition, by the way. Or swap file. You can set that up later, or you can use what I use, which is VRAM swap. Yeah, this mkinit cpio-p. This that is usually not required, but in our case, it looked like it was. And then we go into mediate 2 plus 2, and then mount slash slash boot, and then we and in we go. Capital P or lowercase p? I can't see. There we go. Filling your hooks, loading up your init or MFS. Filling up the dead air with nonsense. Filling up the dead air with nonsense. As you can tell, this is very easy, and all of the errors that you would come across normally are just blatantly obvious from the second that they happen. And then we power up. Because we don't have the hard drive enabled, because that's what I decided to do. Virtual hard drive, that is. Here we go. Here we have a boot menu. Did I make a typo? Okay. Exit. All right. Anyway, I must have made a typo, Glen. I'm telling you, this is super easy to do. I'm not annoyed at all. I'm not annoyed at all about any of this. It's a Seinfeld reference. You remember that thing where Jerry would come out and say, "What's the thing with the have you ever noticed that balls are round?" Why are there no square balls? Where can I get my dodecahedron ball? I don't think you said anything about balls. I said something about balls just now. Why? I said something about balls, Glenn. How you doing? So, moment. That's VDA 2/MD. Yes. Okay. Hit ramfs-linux.img. rh.conf int ramfs. Oh, init ramfs dash linux.img. If this fails again, even one more time, we're going to fix it in a different way. All right? All right. Now we got to power it off. Here. This. You can tell I didn't practice, and you can tell I'm trying to show you the full experience of installing Arch Linux and getting it to work. I almost kind of wanted it to not work that time. And you know, it's pretty fun. Now, if we do sudo su, that'll take us in and switch user into root. Plus, your password, we pick our password, now we're root. And from this point, you can install basically any graphical environment you want. If you choose to have a window manager like Utah, Xmonad, DWM, oh, DWM. My first window manager was with TWM. Oh, TWM. I never loved you, but I've used you in the past. Some people like to have, you know, and some people like to have, some people like to have cinnamon, or Pantheon, or XFCE, or LMDE, or LXDE, or, you know, really LND, that's Linux Mint Division Edition, LXQT, LXDE, Unicorn, and Unicorn is a real one. Trinity, Nomad, which I think they're now called Matrix. Sorry, Mate crowd. A lot of people would get upset if I didn't mention Mate. No one will get upset if I don't mention Deepin. I don't know how many people use it outside of China. Um, yeah, there's just, if I didn't name yours, know that I didn't name the one I'm using right now myself. See? You all know what I'm running. You see that. Look how that happened. You know what I'm doing. Well, I didn't name it. But in this particular case, we're going to go with something standard and reliable. Pacman-S-YU, update everything. Pacman-S plasma. It says plasma, so we're going to go plasma. And you're going to see something real fun here. You see we need to have, I usually pick one. For this, I'll pick two. For this, I'll pick two. For this, I'll pick one. and then we download 734.37 megabytes of stuff. Okay, now we let that go. So we can either have some dead air here, or I can ramble on for a little bit. Now, I may or may not be an old man. As that I may or may not be an old man. I may or may not be good at rambling. Let me tell you, Glenn, we've seen a lot of weird stuff happen in this world, but nothing is ever quite as weird as what you're seeing right now. There are people who watch this stuff. I'm not kidding you. They watch stuff like this installing because they like watching this stuff install. There are a lot of people who really get upset about the package manager that's too slow, which is one of the benefits of Arch Linux. Your package manager is really quite fast compared to most of the others. I think that the one in Void Linux maybe is faster. I don't know. One of the slowest that I've ever seen is, of course, Gentoo's. Oh, that'll be a good video that we do. Huh. Can we do that one next? When you want to one up that neighbor's cousin's uh, roommate's younger brother. Yeah, if you want to one up an Arch user, you install Gentoo. Now you can install Gentoo using any Linux operating system. I install it quite well using Ubuntu. In fact, I would say that Ubuntu is probably the best of the best when it comes to Linux operating systems for installing Gentoo. Yeah. Uh, so normally you go in, you set up a bunch of hooks and stuff to make it run SDDN, your greeter. You can see it there on your screen. Just creating user SDDN with the UID 970 and GID. You could set up that, or you just do start plasma. And to tell you, it didn't work. You know why? I think we need to install Glen. Oh, nice Glen. We log out of root, start plasma Glen, and like I mentioned before, you have that login screen and all that good stuff. Your SDVM, which is the simple desktop display manager. I think I can't remember what it stands for. Why are you asking me? Why are you asking me? Just up the resolution to 1920 by 1080, which is my natural monitor resolution. Keep, and I'm going to say, oops, scale display always. All right. So, close that up. And there you go. Arch Linux up and running. And I believe we have console. We don't have console. No, well, if you look in the if you look in the Well, we didn't set up Discover yet, did we? No, I don't think we installed Flatpak either. Uh, any Plasma add-ons? Wallpapers, switching, scripts. So look, no console installed. Probably need to install the KDE apps package. I'm going to teach you right now. There we go. Need to do soup. And we Pacman dash SS. No, uppercase S, lowercase s. Is 6 search for search for console. And then we can see KDE applications and KDE utilities. So we're just gonna Pacman dash S KDE dash applications and KDE dash utilities. Putting in S's and not putting in S's. So the default here is to install all. Cool. Yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Cool. That's what we're gonna do. Cool. That's what we're gonna do. I think we want 30. How many songs? Wait. Dead air. Oh yeah, when I was a kid, Glen, do a review for Glen childhood. When I was a kid, I said to the guidance counselor, I want to be a computer programmer. I want to create an operating system that's better than Windows. My guidance counselor said to me, that is impossible to do. You will never be able to do that. Don't even bother. You will waste your time. And I thought, well, he's probably right. And then I didn't ever try. I happen to much prefer Linux to Windows. And Linux was made by a guy in his 20s back in 1991. He sat down at his computer and said, man, you really want to have an operating system that works like the computers that we have at school. But this operating system that they have at school is too darn expensive. I'm going to write my own operating system. So he did. He made a kernel, specifically, the Linux kernel. And then he posted it to a news group or something like that and said, hey, I made this funny little kernel here. I don't know if anyone can use it. And then a whole bunch of people started putting in all of the GNU programs. And boom, Linux. GNU/Linux was started. And that's that. So I'd like to give a big middle finger to NVIDIA but redirected to that previous guidance counselor who told me that it was impossible because I didn't try to do it, someone else did it instead. 10 years before I graduated. So, here we go. Here we have all of those applications that we just installed. Right? There are a whole lot more in here now. And one of them that we can find here is console. Console is a terminal. And that will allow us to Mac-S, Firefox. We also want to have Flat. All right. Now, we do sudo and then 2 exclamation points. It repeats the last thing we just put in as a so, super secure password for Glen. Obviously isn't Glen, it's Glen. And here we go. Yeah, we just totally installed everything. So by we, I mean I. And I made mistakes along the way. I want you to see those mistakes. Don't be afraid of your mistakes. Learn from your mistakes. I noticed that with every single mistake that I made, I knew immediately what was wrong, what I did wrong. Oh, did I make a typo? Yes, I did. No, of course I need to go back and do the MK and its CPIO. But there were other things I did wrong as well. Like I forgot to install the bootloader. I realized that immediately. A lot of people, that's one of the things that they forget to do. They forget to install a bootloader. I'm not kidding here. They forget to install the bootloader, and then they go to the forums. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? What you do is you go back to the manual, and it says right in the manual what to do. Here, I'll show you. And it's just right here. Bootloader. Choose and install Linux capable bootloader. You skip that step, whole thing's gone. And the reason that it just says that is because the page that explains how to do it. I picked System Deboot. Why did I pick System Deboot? Because it's fast and easy to install. But I could have picked Grub, which I've done many times, or Grub, which I've done many times, or Lilo, which well, now I used to love that, but it's discontinued. Yeah, or any number of these. People giving you the choice. That's why they have it like that. Right? You can have LVN or system encryption, and you know, the guide will tell you how to do it. You just got to follow the links, right? Read your manual, read your documentation. Anyway, we're back in our system here, and now we have good old-fashioned Firefox ready. Okay? But the other thing that we installed was Flatpak, and Flatpak allows us to do Flatpak search. So we want Steam for games. Search with FlatHub. That will show us everything. Everything that I have that matches. And it is Steam. Launcher for Steam software. You just do Flatpak install com.valvesoftware.steam. And it will install Steam. Heroic, if you want to install things from Epic Games or GOG, which I have on actually on my computer. It's a great thing, Flatpak. And you know, when I'm not going to go into it right here, but you can configure your Discover, which is your software center in KDE. don't even have to configure it. This stuff will automatically look. There's VLC. Go from FlatHub, right there. This stuff we discover. You can just install it. VLC installed from FlatHub. There you go. It's installing. And by the way, Discover, I don't like it. It's buggy. But it does work. It'll tell you what you need to do for updates and stuff. It'll tell you what you have installed and stuff. And all that. Yeah. Once the VLC is installed, then we can find it here. VLC. VLC is open. Virtual machine virtual installation. So you tell that little brat Glen that there is nothing super special about getting Arch Linux up and running. I can do it, you can do it, everybody can do it. It's not that hard. And like I said right at the very beginning, if you run Arch install, everything will be done for you for the most part. You can pick what desktop you want from a menu. You can tell it to install Firefox. You can tell it to install a whole bunch of stuff that you want. And it will just do it. It is awesome. Don't let that little kid bully you, Glen. I don't know what you did in the first place. All right. I'm going to stop this now, Glen. Good night.